Well, hi, I'm John Hart. Welcome back to Mr. America Hart. Hey, today's a little bit different, okay? This is going to be a fun one because I know that some of y'all may remember from my past few videos how I discussed with you being left a locker or a storage facility with this collection of catalogs, or it looks like encyclopedias, right? Of Ironman magazines, different volumes, a collection that dated back to 1956. And what kind of collection, who owns the collection, and it was pretty much Mike Mentzer, 1978 Mr. Universe, 1976 Mr. America, and second place in the Mr. Olympia in 1979, that Mike Mentzer, Mr. Heavy Duty High Intensity Training. I've referenced him many times in all of my videos. Now, why is this even significant? You'll see in this one collection of volumes of Ironman magazine, a bunch of yellow sticky notes. And these are his original. I never took them out of the pages. And he underlined and highlighted many notes or articles or relevant passages to him. And today, I'm going to go over in particular, this is the March 1978 issue, the one with Frank Zane on the cover right here, you could see. Right? And this was 1 year into Frank Zane's Mr. Olympia reign. He won 3 Mr. Olympias, 1977, 1978, and 1979. So this particular issue was after he had won the 1977 Mr. Olympia. He was gearing up for the 1978 Mr. Olympia, which was going to happen in the fall, either September or October of that year. And Mike Mentzer, in this particular year, 1978, he was winning the Mr. Universe and turning pro. So he had not yet competed as a professional bodybuilder at the Olympia level yet. He did see Frank Zane, the reigning Mr. Olympia, as his competition. He was shooting high, obviously. And it's interesting, I'm going to read some excerpts from this to you today of how, well, it would appear that Mike at the time may have been a little bit obsessed with a lot of Frank Zane. And you'll see right here, all this yellow highlight. I'm going to read a bunch of this to you today. And we're going to have a little story time with John Hart and Ironman Magazine and what was going through Mike Mentzer's mind in 1978. I believe this was after he had won. No, it's not. He had not won the Mr. Universe yet. So he was yet to win Mr. Universe in Acapulco that year. So he was already a top amateur. In 1977, he did take second place to Cal Scalic in the Mr. Universe. And so this was as he's making his assault on the Mr. Universe competition to turn pro and then become an IFBB pro and then eventually go against Frank Zane that following year. So hang tight. Here we go. Okay, so what are we looking at here? Within this book and within this episode or this one issue of Ironman, you see Frank Zane on the cover, like I said, March 1978. There's an article in here called Preparing for My Mr. Olympia Win, and then also a second one, a Frank Zane seminar. And what was it in particular that Mike, as you can see, all of these pages or yellow stickies all over the place. What was it that he was highlighting? What was he so interested in that, kept his attention? And perhaps, as I'm saying, wow, he was a little bit really interested with everything Frank Zane. As a matter of fact, he dog-eared this page of a Frank Zane ad where Frank was selling his mail order. And you could see he wasn't just interested in the Frank Zane Super Nutrition Cookbook, but he also, as is typical Mike Mentzer, interested in the mind in bodybuilding. He had a great, great respect for the mental aspects of bodybuilding. I should say this was my little yellow sticky. I pushed that off to the side. So what exactly was it that he was interested in? Well, let's take a quick look. Apparently, Frank Zane, in preparing for his first Miss Olympia win in 1977, Mike was reading about how dairy products, milk products, are great size builders in my case, but I have to leave them alone a month before the show for maximum muscularity. So there was a belief back then that dairy products of any kind were going to blur out definition. And you see right here, he's talking about taking amino acids before a show, right? How it helps him. He trained as if, here's the mental aspect. He trained as if he was all ready. He had already won, and his body responded as his mind commanded it to do. Again, Mike Mentzer into the mental aspects of the bodybuilding. Nutritionally, he ate a lot of meat, eggs, and a new protein Rio Blair developed, having no carbohydrates. So yes, Mike was very interested, obviously, in everything that Zane was doing. Zane was the established Mr. Olympia at that time, the best in the world, and quite a physique he had too. Look at that picture. It was a great shot, right? So another mention about supplements. I'm just showing you the highlights that Mike Mentzer yellowed out. So B6 is also very important in protein digestion, right? And the ideal way to do this is to eat small quantities of food or small meals or 30-gram protein snacks every 2 hours. So back then there was a big belief in taking in protein every couple of hours. And take your vitamins throughout the day with those feedings. There's a question about how do you train with maximum effort, with minimum time. And here's some interesting answers. The amount of weight you use on exercise is what makes the muscle bigger. So when I am training for size, I rest longer so that I can use heavier weights. Interesting, right? Like a power lifter. And at one point, as Zane went through 1977 and 78 and 79, between 78 and 79, he's actually famous for having trained with a power lifter for that show to add 6 pounds of quality muscle. So here's another good question. When you were training for size, how do you determine how long your rest periods will be between sets and when you're ready to do another set? And he says, that comes from experience. My main emphasis in training is to completely clear my mind so I can go to the gym and train while not really thinking. Thinking, in a sense, will separate you from your workout. Interesting points. Again, look at this. Concentration, consciousness, concentration. Mike had major interest in what was going on in Frank Zane's mind. He highlighted, again, it's all mental and the nutritional aspects he's highlighting. The amino acid tryptophan to help him sleep, to recover. Forgive me for moving the camera around so much. I found out it was a very powerful natural tranquilizer taken in amounts of 1,000 to 2,000 grams. I believe that's actually taken in amounts of 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams, but this is what it says. It will put you to a deep sleep in about 1/2 an hour. Of course, back then, tryptophan was taken off the market at one point because it was found to be tainted. So it was off the market for a long time. Then I come home after working out in the morning from 6 to 8 a.m. He'd come home and have breakfast and some supplements along with this. He'd take 2 or 3 or 4,000, here we are, milligrams of tryptophan and wait 1/2 an hour. Then he'd fall asleep into a very deep, relaxed sleep. He would sleep about 3 or 4 hours. Wow. So after training, recovery was very important to Frank Zane. So here we go. Let's see. All these cool ads, by the way, in the old Iron Man magazines. Look at that. Interesting, right? And then we have one highlighted section. This is under the Frank Zane seminar again. And he's talking about when you're getting into really good shape, very muscular. After cutting, there's a final phase called getting ripped. Wow. See, back then, the word ripped was just becoming popular. Everything up to that point was about being cut. And then the old Ironmans are really famous for having continued on page 93, and then it would go on 3 or 4 more times. I don't know who their editor at the time was with this, but they did this a lot. So the articles would continue on in several sections. Okay. And you seem to be one of the most symmetrical of modern day bodybuilders. Was this natural, or did you do certain exercise routines to achieve this effect? Obviously, this came from, we say this today, obviously, this came from heredity. A good way to see what your body symmetry is like is to see a silhouette of your body. If you can see yourself this way, you can tell a great deal about your symmetry. So again, Mike, interested in the nutritional, interested in the mental that Frank Zane was going through. Oh, and right here I found a continuation of the seminar. Frank Zane says, I like Blair's supplements because they are a gelatin capsule and act fast in the bloodstream. I also use Blair's milk and egg protein powder. I won't use it the last month of training. See that belief about milk and eggs, dairy, smoothing them out. The way that I do use it, though, is to take some mixed in a drink 1 hour before I begin training. This raises the blood sugar in the body, and in this way I get an extremely good pump. This is one of the real secrets to a good workout. Interesting, right? Oh, to keep my blood sugar up, I eat some type of protein every few hours and certain complex carbohydrates. Starch, for example. Vegetable sources such as baked potatoes and avocados are fantastic. So proteins, this is all nutritional. Again, Mike Mentzer had highlighted all of these segments in the Frank Zane seminar. So protein, starches, and fats in small amounts every few hours would keep the blood sugar at a higher level for longer periods of time compared to the short chain of assimilation of simple sugars. Zane's comments, I eat around 200 grams of protein a day. That averages out to about 1 gram for every pound of body weight. I find no need to get any more than that amount. I have found eggs to be extremely valuable to the bodybuilder. If you are training hard, you don't have to worry about getting a high cholesterol from the eggs. Wow, look at that picture. Tiny little waist vacuum as he's sitting from the side. And then, let's see. And there is one thing that does it. It isn't the training or the nutrition or your mental attitude or how much sleep you get. It's none of that. But all of it. You can't rely on any one thing as the secret to bodybuilding. Wow. One thing in training is to set a goal for yourself by contest or whatever you want to train for to get in better shape. Realize that you have only so much time to do this. Valid words. So yeah, so great picture of Zane right there at his peak. Prime Frank Zane. So very good. So all of these things are the highlights that Mike Mentzer had done with regards to Frank Zane, and who was at the time the current Mr. Olympia. Oh, there's one more right there. Frank's seminar comments. I believe that liver is very good. It has some high energy factors in it. I now only take about 15 tablets of liver a day. Yeah. Liver tablets were huge back then. Building muscle, and they believed it gave them energy. All right. Now this was interesting because as I'm sitting here thinking, I got enough footage for this, I decided to go and continue to flip through the magazine, or this encyclopedia magazine, and on the back cover of that same 1978 issue, you have Frank Zane looking amazing physique. And then the very next issue I have here is May in 1978, right? And we have on the cover, who else but Mike Mentzer. It's a great picture, right? And so when I flip through it, I come upon this article. Well, let's see. Put a little yellow sticky in there. And let's get rid of that. The article is called Mike Mentzer, More of His Training Wisdom. And looking really great, thick, well before his time, an amazing physique, big, proportionate, ripped. And when I'm reading the article, a couple of comments worth reading to you all. is here we are under, seminar with Mentzer, and I'm going to show you what it says. It says right here in one of the last paragraphs, it says, and they're talking about his high intensity training. Now, Mike hasn't always trained in this manner, but he hasn't always looked as good as he does now either. Not many years ago, he too spent many hours in the gym every day, and when his progress faltered, he thought he wasn't doing enough. So he increased his workouts even further, only to find that he came to an abrupt standstill. When he decided upon his present training scheme and really went to work on it, he was amazed at how he improved and with much less time spent training. This is 1978. Let's see. What does the last paragraph say? Worth reading right here. At present, this is Mike as he's preparing for the Mr. Universe, Acapulco, 1978. It says, at present, Mike is performing only 2 sets per body part and is still making gains. In the near future, he feels he will be able to drop that to 1 set. For most of you who have been, I'm going to leave this here for a second. For most of you who claim that he trained like anyone else, well, Ironman magazine is well known for one big thing. And what was that one thing that Ironman magazine was so well known for? Well, in bodybuilding, powerlifting training, whenever they wrote articles back in the day describing somebody's workout routine or a particular program they did, or they had a seminar, it was usually because they sent somebody to the seminar, or because somebody was at the seminar and wrote the article reporting on the seminar, or they witnessed somebody training and wrote an article based on the actual, took notes and then wrote the article, based on the actual training that they witnessed with their own eyes. So when you're reading an Ironman magazine, like I just showed you, that Mike Mentzer was training doing 2 sets per body part in 1978. He hadn't even turned professional yet. And he was gaining, the book says, the magazine says. Those magazines were treated as, periodicals of the time. This was the only information that bodybuilders had. As you can see, Mike Mentzer, who was about to turn professional, who had a physique that was one of the best in the world, was, in my opinion, it seems like he's really obsessed with what the best in the world, which as a champion should think. You want to know, you want to aim high and aim for the best in the world. He wanted to know what Zane was doing. He wanted to know what Zane was doing and how he was doing it. He wanted to know his nutrition. He wanted to know his mental training. Those are the things that Mike gave the most, he wanted to learn the most about with Zane, because he didn't agree with his training. Mike had high intensity training. Zane was not training that way. That was about the only thing that was really radically different. So obviously we're sitting here with this magazine from 1978 that shows us clearly that Mike was not training in a high volume fashion like we've all heard claimed all over the internet, because Franco Colombo at one point claimed he just saw him training like anybody else. Well, he must have been not observing too closely, okay? Because that's really the only source, the only person that said he trained like everybody else. Because everybody else saw that high intensity training, 2 sets per body part, 1 per exercise, eventually 1 per body part as a pro when he did his rest pause training. And you could read more about that another time. But look, as we're wrapping it up today, thanks for stopping on by. Before you leave, off to my left, you're gonna see that is the subscribe button right there for my channel. That disc popping up right now, that's it. Please give that thing a tap and you'll be notified when I have new videos pop up. Down below and off to your left, you're gonna see a thumbs up button down there. Please give that thing a tap and turn it blue. The YouTube algorithm loves it and I love it too. And I'll see you next time, and I'll have more stories for you from the old Ironman magazines. See you.